HBO makes shocking announcements about A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. Good day, Westeros Throne family. Picture this. You were sipping your favorite drink, casually scrolling through entertainment news, when suddenly, boom! HBO drops an announcement so surprising it could make even a White Walker blink twice. Yes, the studio has finally revealed new, game-changing updates about A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, and it is stirring up more buzz than a dragon flapping over King's Landing at midnight. Before we dive sword first into the chaos, make sure you subscribe to Westeros Throne and tap that notifications bell so you never miss a twist, turn, or Targaryen-related meltdown. Now let us dive straight into the fire. So, HBO has officially confirmed what fans have been whispering, guessing, and sometimes fighting over in comment sections. A Night of the Seven Kingdoms is not just happening, it is getting the kind of attention, budget, and ambition that signals HBO is gearing up for another massive Westerosi hit. You know that moment when someone tells you a small surprise is on the way and it turns out to be a full-blown dragon egg? That is the exact vibe of this announcement. And here's where things get wild. HBO wants this new series to stand completely on its own. Not a side dish, not a little appetizer, not a, hey, remember we also made Game of Thrones background project. They are pushing this show forward as the next great epic in the franchise, giving it a cinematic look that feels like a beautiful blend between the grounded storytelling of the early Game of Thrones seasons and the massive, sweeping energy of House of the Dragon. And if you think that's impressive, wait until you hear the casting updates, because this is where the fandom started vibrating. HBO has revealed early casting choices for Sir Duncan the Tall and Young Egg, and let's just say the choices are bold enough to spark debates from here to the wall. Instead of going for big blockbuster names, HBO is leaning toward rising actors, fresh faces who can grow into their roles the same way the original Game of Thrones cast did. It's a smart move, honestly. If you hand a series like this to overly familiar actors, the show can feel like cosplay. But when you choose talented newcomers, you get the magic of discovery. But casting is just the beginning. The real storm is brewing in the plot direction. HBO confirmed that the first season will adapt The Hedge Knight, the very first Duncan Egg novella. That means we're getting a world that's still recovering from political upheaval, but not yet drowning in dragons, betrayals, wildfire, and existential dread. Well, at least not drowning too deeply. The tone is more adventurous, more intimate, and surprisingly hopeful, especially compared to the tragedy-heavy narrative of House of the Dragon. But don't mistake hopeful for boring. This era of Westeros is bubbling with shifting alliances, secret threats, and the simmering tensions that will eventually give rise to the great Targaryen conflicts we already know. Think of it like watching the first crack spread across a piece of ice. You know the shattering is coming, but seeing how it starts is part of the thrill. And speaking of thrills, HBO has a production strategy that caught everyone off guard. The studio is speeding up the development cycle. Normally, HBO likes to take its sweet time, spending years in the shadows crafting scripts, rewriting them, filming pilots, scrapping pilots, writing new ones, reconsidering the budget, and then finally saying, okay, maybe we'll shoot this after lunch. But this time, they're moving fast, faster than the Ravens during the long night.
Why? Because HBO wants A Night of the Seven Kingdoms to drop closer to the next season of House of the Dragon, creating a sort of domino effect of hype. A non-stop conveyor belt of Westorian content. No long empty gaps, no Thrones droughts. Just pure, uninterrupted chaos, the way George R.R. Martin intended. But even that is not the biggest shock. The budgeting strategy is. Unlike House of the Dragon, which deals with CGI dragons in almost every episode, A Night of the Seven Kingdoms is being designed to deliver spectacle without depending too heavily on massive VFX. The story revolves around Sir Duncan and Egg traveling through a more grounded Westeros. Tourneys, inns, forests, political schemes, and the kind of character-driven storytelling fans have been begging for. HBO wants to return to that feeling of being in the mud with the characters, feeling the tension, hearing the clanking armor, watching tempers flare without needing a mythical creature to melt everyone. They want the story to breathe, and honestly, that is exactly what made the early seasons of Game of Thrones so gripping. Now, let us talk tone, because HBO just revealed something that stunned longtime readers. The show will balance humor and heart with classic Westorian tension. Dunk and Egg's relationship is one of the most charming duos George R.R. Martin ever wrote. Dunk, the humble and honorable knight who takes chivalry seriously. Egg, the quick-witted kid who is hiding one very, very large secret. He is actually a Targaryen prince. Their dynamic is heartfelt without being cheesy. It is warm without being soft. And HBO wants to keep that balance. Imagine the grounded banter of Jon and Sam, mixed with the quiet loyalty of Brienne and Podrick, topped with the political uncertainty of early King's Landing plots. That is the tonal recipe they're going for. But if you think the show will stay harmless, you might want to tighten your armor straps. HBO hinted that while the story starts small, later seasons could tackle some of the most dramatic and dangerous eras in Targaryen history. If the first season succeeds, you can expect the adaptation of the Sworn Sword, the Mystery Knight, and potentially even the Great Council drama and the Road to the Blackfyre rebellions. Let me put it simply, this series may begin as an adventure, but it has the potential to turn into a political wildfire. Another fascinating point from the announcement, the creators are bringing in George R.R. Martin far more directly this time. Of course, the man is famously still working on The Winds of Winter, and yes, the world is still waiting. But for this show, HBO insists that Martin is deeply involved in the early world-building conversations, helping shape the tone, the adaptation structure, and the long-term vision. This is not the kind of rushed improvisation that hurt Game of Thrones Season 8. HBO wants a plan, and they want the author's fingerprints on it from the very beginning. It's a smart move. The Dunk and Egg stories are short, but the world around them is massive. If HBO tries to inflate them without guidance, you get narrative bloat. With Martin's input, you get direction. But fans raised an eyebrow at one big question. What about the timeline? A Night of the Seven Kingdoms takes place almost a century before the events of Game of Thrones. That creates distance, but also freedom. No pressure to match the original cast, no need to endlessly reference the Starks, Lannisters, or Targaryens we already know. This era allows for subtle connections, not overbearing ones. But HBO hinted they will include clever nods for the fans, ancestral names,